Patient X, quite well known in scientific circles, suffered a bite from his pet rattlesnake. Right after that, his neighbor started the car and attached a spark plug to the patient's damaged lip. Here's what happened next. In the 1980s, scientists tested an experimental method of saving victims of venomous bites. Patients attacked by snakes, scorpions, and ants received electrical shocks from the stun gun. Yeah, I also thought about it. Not only have the poor guys been bitten, now they're also being electrocuted? The shocks were short but painful and targeted the area closest to the bitten spot. But the idea wasn't to torment the poor victims. In 34 cases, the current was applied for about half an hour. As a result, none of the usual serious medical complications developed, and none of the patients died. Also, the pain from the venomous bites disappeared within 15 minutes, although it could usually last for hours or even days, depending on what creature bit you. Turns out, the scientists had managed to achieve a real breakthrough. Just think about it. Learning how to neutralize venom with electricity is just amazing, especially considering how expensive conventional antidotes could be. This discovery could not be ignored by the military, who immediately thought about including stun guns in first aid kits. Soldiers who ended up in the snake-infested forests would certainly appreciate this help. Take the Vietnam War. It happened long before scientists discovered how electrical discharges affect venom, but still the U.S. National Archives and Records Administration and other sources estimate that 25 to 50 American soldiers a year were bitten by snakes during this war. About 10,786 American soldiers died of non-combat causes, including 9,107 by accidents and 938 due to disease. How many of them actually passed away due to venomous bites? Who knows? I couldn't find more accurate information, but it's not surprising that the Army became interested in the revolutionary discovery right away. Though it turned out the stun guns didn't work. The stories of the healing power of the current are sort of legends that are quite common. For example, in Ecuador, over time the idea that the discharge can save from a deadly venom reached the scientific community. In the professional, and not quite so, medical media, articles on the topic began to appear. But if you look at all these publications with an open mind, turns out there isn't any solid proof. Articles mentioned lab studies of venom, animal testing, and case reports involving small numbers of people. Today, most scientists believe that the positive effect of the stun gun was more a coincidence than a startling discovery. Perhaps the toxins people were exposed to were quite weak. And the analgesic effect? Well, there's evidence that in some cases, shocks of a certain frequency can numb the pain. Pliny the Elder mentioned this when he wrote about electric catfish and stingrays. Perhaps the same thing happened here. Still, people continue to believe that a strong electric shock can save you from a snake bite, and they use improvised tools for this, like electric lawnmowers or car batteries. In the best case scenario, this has no effect. In the worst case, well, Patient X was really lucky. Even though his neighbor revved up the car engine many times for about 5 minutes, trying to make sure he neutralized all the venom, as a result, when the victim was urgently taken to the hospital by helicopter, Patient X looked more like a corpse. Fortunately, his life was saved, but it was one of the most absurd cases of self-treatment that I've ever heard of. Seriously. However, let's give electricity a chance. It may be doing more harm than good when it comes to snake bites, but there are other ways it could be useful. Today it's been proven that ultra-low voltage, that is under 50 volts AC and 120 volts DC, can kill bacteria. This requires very little energy. A square 0.4-inch solar panel is enough. This low voltage can be used, for example, to sterilize a doorknob or other surfaces often touched by people. Okay. This disinfection method is supposed to be safe. Ultra-low voltage implies that if the discharge passes through the human, they will not be harmed. Well, at least not that much. Of course, heart condition and other factors should be considered, but the concept itself seems great to me. Hold on, wait a sec. Here, now to the handshake. Another field of application is water purification. Scientists who propose to use current to disinfect doorknobs also pointed out that ultra-low voltage can prevent the formation of, I quote, biofilms in water storage and cleaning. In short, that comes in handy to prevent an algae bloom. But you know what? The use of electricity and water for cleaning and disinfection was adopted by some businesses back in the early 2010s. Imagine some kind of catering. To keep it clean, you have to use various chemicals that, well, you can't call them 100% safe. You probably get what I'm talking about. And now you even remembered this characteristic smell of bleach. A much more eco-friendly approach is water, which periodically gets an electric charge. Sounds like an infomercial for some questionable product? It really works though. Research showed that charged water acts as a purifier. Bottled water is charged to generate millions of small bubbles that take on either a positive or negative charge. The charged bubbles attach to and surround dirt particles, lifting the dirt from the surface. All that remains is to wipe it off. Of course, this cleansing method has its drawbacks. You need to wipe up right away. Use it only on smooth surfaces. Devices are quite expensive unless you use them all the time. Also, charged water can't handle all types of infection, though it's still effective anyway. Perhaps in the future, we'll be able to get a better understanding of the issue. After all, electricity gained widespread use not so long ago. Give it a little more time. After all, our distant ancestors had their own ways of fighting viruses. 8,000 years before mankind learned about microbes or viruses, there was already a way to deal with them. A universal solution, a gift of nature. A metal which for some reason is treated without due respect today. Copper. The first recorded use of copper as an infection-killing agent comes from Smith's Papyrus, the oldest known surgical treatise in history. By the way, it's believed that this papyrus is a later copy of the manuscript that dates back to 3200 BC. That is, even then, the ancient Egyptians knew about copper. They denoted it with the Ankh symbol, which among other things was a symbol of eternal life. Do you realize the importance of that? In 1600 BC, the Chinese used copper coins to treat pain in the heart and stomach, as well as bladder diseases. The Phoenician seafarers put shavings from their bronze swords into battle wounds to prevent infection. For thousands of years, women have known that their children are less likely to suffer from diarrhea if they drink from copper vessels. Is there anything that was not treated with copper? Doctor, my stomach hurts. Copper. My head hurts for 5 days straight. Yeah, copper. The crocodile bit off my leg. What should I do? Well, you could definitely use some copper. But how does it work? I mean, the infection can't just, get scared by the fact that the ancient Egyptians designated copper with the Ankh symbol. Pathogens can't go like, eternal life? Nah, that's a hard pass. There are several explanations for that, but here's the simplest one. When a microbe lands on copper, the ions blast the pathogen like a rocket volley, fast and powerful. Also, ions seek out and destroy DNA and RNA within bacteria or viruses, preventing mutations that create drug-resistant superbugs. And no matter how old the copper object is, it'll disinfect just as well as the day it was made. By the way, recent studies showed that copper nanoparticles combined with extracts of certain plants can, among other things, be effective against snake venom. But to be honest, this is a single publication, and I don't really trust it. As soon as I find anything else on the topic, I'll let you know. Actually, it should be noted that using copper to treat everything is not the worst idea. Ancient people had way stranger recipes. One of them was theriac, a universal antidote that could supposedly cure any poisoning. Sounds fantastic and ridiculous? Well, just like the composition of theriac. Although it was different depending on the era, country, and doctor who used it, theriac recipes shared common components. So what happens if you mix leaven, honey, wild animal flesh, dried scorpion, viper skin, saffron, ginger, cinnamon, swine gall, ash, wild carrots, fortified wine, and a damn shredded mummy? That's the point. Of course, this is the summary of all the recipes, but this did not make it better or worse. You can add parsley, bay leaves, and rose petals. Theriac will not get a healing effect anyway. Compared to this, copper shavings used to cover wounds don't seem like such a bad idea. Well, okay, actually, many metals were really helpful in treatment. The first recorded use of silver for prevention of infections dates back to ancient Greece and Rome. During the Middle Ages, silver was commonly used to disinfect water and prevent food from spoiling during storage. It was also used to treat burns and wounds. Later in the 19th century, sailors used to put silver coins in barrels of water and wine to keep the liquid pure. What if the weapon against werewolves and vampires worked just like that, disinfecting them until they couldn't handle it? Well, an antiseptic would have worked too. What about gold? The most precious metal of the past was used to treat diseases of the eyes, brain, and heart. It was believed that gold was even effective against leprosy, helped heal wounds, cured baldness. I wouldn't be surprised to learn that ancient doctors would gladly treat any existing diseases with this precious metal, but they simply don't know about some of them yet. Though it was impossible to be treated with metals and not make a mistake at some point. Okay, in fact, there were enough mistakes over the entire history of mankind, and many drugs turned out to be lethal in large doses. but mercury beats them all. The ancient Persians and Greeks added mercury to a useful ointment, and 2nd century Chinese alchemists prized liquid mercury for its supposed ability to increase life expectancy and overall, vitality? Some healers even promised that by consuming drinks containing poisonous mercury, sulfur, and arsenic, their patients would gain eternal life and the ability to walk on water. You, of course, realize this is complete nonsense, but I'll clarify nevertheless, never do it under any circumstances. Don't be like Qin Shi Huang. This Chinese emperor, he desired immortality so much, he took mercury pills made by his court doctors and alchemists. Well, what can I say? The effect was quite the opposite. We'll see you later.